Just talk about water. Water is needed. It's good for establishment. We definitely are looking for you to design an eco-roof that you may not need consistent water over time. But water as precipitation that falls on your roof, we've talked about how that's managed. And then potable water that you might need for your irrigation system. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Some people are harvesting rainwater off of eco-roofs or off of penthouses. And then there's also water in the form of air conditioning condensate that flows just sometimes perpetually throughout the summer. And so you have this one spot on a roof, and we're trying to identify there's air conditioning condensate that comes off of this building. And it appears as if there is some better or different plant growth that's occurring as it drains in sort of a serpentine line to the drain. But it's amazing that it was, Tom, when we were up there, it was, late September, and there was still condensate coming out of or even early October. There's still condensate coming out of that just as the heat that's generated with the building, computers, all that stuff. So it's important at least just to acknowledge that where there might be HVAC units and those kinds of things, to acknowledge, well, where's the condensate going to come out, and then looking at what you might be doing for that design. So have a good idea as to what water sources the eco-roof's going to use. Then, of course, the first choice is to do one that just relies on precipitation. And the question we're going to throw out there is a truly self-sustaining eco-roof known at this time in Portland? Does anybody know one? Tom mentioned our O&M building that we didn't irrigate.
It's on top of a cob structure
to
keep the rain off of it, and it is self-sustaining. It's southwest facing, so in the summer it was our first year working on it. We thought everything had died, but now it's thriving.
It's coming back.
Yeah, it looks great.
Did you plant deciduous varieties, or?
I wasn't there for the planting. I think it's like 3 or 4 years old, but yeah, grasses.
Yeah. So. Great. Yeah. So there's the one we just heard about too was that there was a installation of an eco-roof in this last fall. Is that right? Yeah. And then fall 2007, and so it wasn't watered because it was installed in the fall. The rains hit it, it wintered over, and then it came up in the spring, and it's all right. It's all sedum with a jute matting over the top, so it's 4 odd inches of soil, I guess, or a thin soil layer, then sedum cuttings, and then jute matting placed on top of that. So it was planted in the fall, grown, and then spring came along, started coming up, doing real well, and the landscape maintenance or landscape contractor didn't irrigate it until early August. And he watered it once. And he hooked up a hose. There's no irrigation system in the whole design. There's hose bibs up there. Hooked up a hose bib and had somebody stand out there with a spray nozzle and watered the whole thing. Yeah, it took 6 hours because it's a long time to water, 14,000 square feet of roof by hand. But nevertheless, put down what they felt as about 1/4 of an inch of water, and then didn't irrigate it the rest of the summer. And it's doing fine. It's doing great. So as for, is it truly self-sustaining? Well, it's getting pretty close. But it's a real good example of, people that we've been having conversations with that are all out there asking the questions that you're asking and going, well, geez, this is something that he's maintaining, that the whole purpose of it is to make this look good, and yet they're still wondering, well, geez, if I can just water just a little bit in that real hot part of the summer, give it a little bit more water and then let it go, that's going to reduce their maintenance costs for the owner. And then it's also going to reduce the maintenance costs on water as well, water usage for the building, and runoff and those kinds of things. Yeah.
I built a small building with an eco-roof on it. It's not in the metro area. It's out in Pine on a ranch, and the building is about 12 by 14. Has a 612 pitch on it, and I'd say, it has about 8 inches of soil on the roof. And I wanted to design the building so that it was like a bunker built right into the hillside. so that when the roof took off and it grew, it would just look like the surrounding countryside. I never seeded it, I never watered it, and so the local sagebrush and bunch grass and all that just seeded up onto it, and it's densely foliated at this point.
That's great. Can you send us a photo?
Perhaps I can.
We'd love to. Love to have it. That'd be great. Mary?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, I think Peter Wilcox on the Build It Green tour claimed that he didn't water his eco roof that he's put in. It's up there, it's just off of Mississippi Avenue, or just off of Killingsworth, I guess. It may be 34th or something. But he was on the Build It Green tour, so you can get it off of there.
Yeah, great, great. All right.
Does moss on your roof qualify?
Well, hold on. We'll hold that thought. We're gonna get there. You guys are a smart bunch. I tell you, asking us questions that we already have in our presentation. That's great. And so the point that we want to make about water and its precipitation and also irrigation need, that just throwing out some new ideas about maybe mulching. There's been some thoughts about putting your soil down and then mulching it so that heat is absorbed by the mulch, maybe a rock mulch or something like that, and then the soil, your growing media, is protected by most of that sun beating down on it, and maybe you'll get a little bit better water retention and those kinds of things. Or shade structures. Is there something that could be designed where you could place on an eco roof in an artful way that would eliminate that kind of heat gain from a flat roof or a south-facing roof that would shade it lightly, then also reduce the irrigation need as well. So irrigation systems, I think we just wanted to talk about this from building design, was that they're not going to last the lifetime of the eco roof. So you really need to consider that. Is it sure we're going to design this thing and maybe construct it and then, I don't know, possibly walk away from it? But they're not going to be out there getting beat down on UV degradation, those kinds of things, for the 40 to 60 years that eco roof's going to be in. That pipe's only sitting in 4 inches of soil, maybe 6 inches of soil, not the 12 to 18 inches of sandy loam or whatever you might be on a typical irrigation system. So there's a high potential for heat degradation over time. So I think you just need to think about that. If you're going to do an eco roof or an irrigation system and your client really is worried and is requiring one, well, have the provision either A, you're going to be replacing this thing in, I don't know how many years, but let's say 10 years or less. So consider that. One of the things that we've realized on this roof is that this was done with HDPE pipe and hose clamps. And we'll talk more about, we'll show you some more slides, but the UV, just expansion contraction of that pipe causes that pipe to actually walk right out of the ground, and then it's exposed to UV. And then we've also had some failures of that hose clamp. It was supposed to be kind of more of a temporary system, but yet there's just some functional issues of having that sun on it all the time, that it's bursting and those kinds of things. So,
are you recommending that they be built with hose beds then?
Yeah, that would be. I think that would be the easiest way to do an irrigation system if you needed one for establishment. It'd be nice to have, a reserve rather than not having a hose bib at all and just saying, oh, we're going to plant this in the fall and we're just going to go for it. And then, geez, if you have a really hot summer and we have a drought and you can see that your plants are being seriously affected and maybe it's the first year, it'd be nice not to have to haul it up in buckets or fire hose or whatever it might be. That would be a fairly easy, I think, retrofit to just require. And that's the kind of thing that you need to talk to the architect, whoever's designing the building, and say, hey, you just leave me a hose bib up at the top and either mechanical space or something like that, and that's just a nice detail to have.